Informative, educational, objective, inclusive, comprehensive. This is Progress Report. Updates and conversations from the Government Information Service.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Progress Report. Updates and conversation from the Government Information Service. My name is Ivan Khanna, my lovely co-host Gleneva Hodge, and today with us we have the Honorable Minister of Social Development and Education. That's your title, but you wear so many hats.
That's correct.
Because if we start to unbox what that role entails, we'll be here forever. And then our partnering stations that air the show won't ever have another episode.
They will drop you.
They will drop us, yeah, because you do so much. So we have the Honorable Ms. Deanne Kentish Rogers here with us. It's been a long time coming. I know you've had to been here on the show a while now. You've had some travels, and then some more travels, and then more travels. It happens. There's a lot going on, so we're gonna unbox all of that stuff today. I like the word unboxing. You said you use it 3 times. Yeah, because we're out of boxing this approach, if we're being honest. Again, thank everyone for listening. We've gotten some positive feedback, if I might say this myself, about the recap show or mid-season show. Folks have suggested some future guests. We have something very important coming up this week, and I'll say this now before we get into it.
Definitely.
You want to tell them?
No, I'll let you do it.
Do I want to let you do it?
Okay, so coming up this week on Thursday, we're going to have a very special episode of Progress Report. We're going to do our very first live episode of Progress Report, and we're going to be looking at GST.
Yes.
We are going to have a panel of persons. We're not going to be in our usual studio space recording. I think we're going to be
At the Ministry of Finance.
Right, and so we have a really robust panel of persons who will be on and really trying to get some answers for you, the public, about what we can expect when GST is implemented.
Yes.
We're going to be looking at various aspects from the consumer to the businesses. What can you expect? How do you how will you be interacting with GST? And so I'm looking forward to that. We are open for any questions from the public that myself and Ivan will be fielding to the panel. So tune in, and it's not going to be at the usual time. It's going to be live at 6 p.m.
We're going to be live at 6 p.m. We will definitely be live on Facebook. We're going to partner with Radio Angola for sure, and the other stations. I know some may have a scheduling conflict because there are programs that are set that run at a particular time, but nevertheless, we may probably utilize their Facebook pages and cross-post it there. But it's going to be everywhere because this is a hot button issue. There's a lot going on. This is the place that we're at, and we need to get to the bottom of it. There's a lot of talk here and there, and I think people just really want the nitty-gritty of it. So we're going to unbox GST, unbox it again, and we're going to see how we're all connected, interrelated, and mutually vulnerable to what has gotten us here and where we go from here. And like the GST slogan say, we're going to see how we are going to be growing sustainably together. That being said, we're going to get right into it. I think I want to start. I know we want to look at education. We want to look at social development. We want to look at a number of things. But I want to touch on your travels, your recent travels. As public relations officer for the government, I did not publish any press statement or release about your last trip simply because of where you went and what you did.
Yes.
And I remember when you were traveling and we were messaging back and forth, and I was like, okay, just keep your head down. So I think people would understand now when you at least start with there before we go back to the other stuff with OECS and everything else. Tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, so my last travels would have been to Israel. I went as part of a study program that I had been doing for the entire year, a leadership program with the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank based in Washington, D.C. So part of the challenge was to go to a place with high conflict, such as Israel, and we had to explore the issues within that city. So we went from the Sea of Galilee up in the north, down through Tel Aviv, into the West Bank, past Jerusalem and into Jerusalem, down into the Negev, which is the desert, and to the border of Gaza, the Gaza Strip. So we did quite a lot of bus travel in quite contentious areas.
I have to. I don't wanna make light of the situation.
Okay, let's
But
go.
the Gaza you talking about ain't the Gaza that we know and in Jamaica. This is the real deal.
This is a real Gaza.
This is the real Gaza. Let them know that this is real. This ain't a vibes cartel thing.
Yeah.
This-
I mean, it can be. You can think that it's Vibes Cartel because this is so far removed from anything that we experience here in Anguilla, or even in the Caribbean region. The conflict that they're dealing with, based on two very separate nations occupying a space in very contentious circumstances through 1967 and 1947 partition plans set in place by the United Nations, to Israel then declaring themselves a state in 1948, and then the subsequent war with all the Arab countries surrounding Israel against Israel. So it's a very contentious region. And just the week before I got there, there was a pretty bloody protest. There was a journalist who was half Palestinian, half American, who was assassinated.
Wow.
And we went very close. Well, we didn't go into that particular area, but we were in all of those areas. We saw persons in the flesh who we saw videos of being involved in conflict between the occupied settlers and the native Palestinians. It's a very conflict-ridden area.
I saw a video on your status, like I don't know if you ended up sharing with me, because we spoke about it, where someone just walked up and was trying to, for the lack of a better word, forgive me, try and commandeer somebody else's house.
They did. That's exactly.
They literally walked up and like, I'm living here now. Right in the middle of, this was no play, this was not being acted out. That's what's happening.
And I saw that gentleman, like, 7 days into the trip, I saw that gentleman walk right past us. Yeah. It's because part of the background to the conflict is that Israel claims that that the land belongs to them biblically.
Yes.
The Jewish people who are settling there say that this is our biblical homeland. And so the Palestinians who are living there in the interim are saying, well, no, it belongs to us.
Pretty much.
So when Jewish, remember the Jewish people are coming from the Holocaust, from being expelled from Europe into Israel to settle a homeland for themselves, and there are people there already. So that relationship is, and how they navigate that relationship is really the biggest challenge. And you see it everywhere. I mean, one of the things that struck me is there could be the same circumstance on the Palestinian side and on the Israeli side. Same thing, like a call that, the Israeli bombers would call Palestinian homes 5 minutes before they bomb them, right? To tell them, get out, this place is about to be shelled. And on the Israeli side, when you ask them about the call, they're like, we are the most moral police force. This is this is part of us being a very moral army, because we give you a warning that we're coming at you. We don't just shall you?
Yeah.
So they're two very different perspectives to what they're doing, because the Palestinians just see it as, you're destroying my home, you're destroying my land. They're like, well, we're in war, and we told you to get out, so we didn't have to tell you to get out.
Yeah, your life means something, is what they're saying.
So,
the conversation, it leads me to this question. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from that trip? Because I'm gathering that this was about conflict resolution. How do you translate what you've gathered there into our context?
Yeah. One of the biggest things I learned from that particular context, talking to Palestinians, talking to Israelis, is that when you have two different sets of priorities, it's very difficult to meet in the middle. The Palestinians' focus has been on resolving the Arab state for Palestinians. The Israeli focus has been resolving the economy for Israelis in Israel. Those are two very different priorities. And because those priorities are so vastly different, there is very little meeting in the middle.
Okay.
If from the public perspective, from the populist perspective in Israel, the Palestinian conflict was a general issue of importance to all Israeli citizens, then there might be more efforts made on the political, from the political perspective, in addressing it. So it comes down to me about leadership really does play a massive role in the resolution of conflicts, and secondly, that priorities matter, because they set the course of how you navigate certain spaces and what resources you put behind those priorities. Because in states, you are juggling resources, limited resources. Everybody is. I mean, in Angola's context more than others. But you have to prioritize, and that's something that taken here, for instance. There is a vast need to do everything. But the reality is you only have very limited resources, and you have to set a priority and say, I am going to sacrifice X, Y, and Z because I want to achieve this.
Saying that, we're going to jump a little further ahead into the conversation that I wanted to right now, but saying that, and since my co-host Gleneva went there with conflict resolution, recently on social media, there was an outcry for statements from the government when there's acts of violence and stuff. We know, and it's been made clear that, speaking too soon has an effect. There's something being worked on that should be unveiled, whereas there's a community message from government that speaks to where we want to go. But outside of that, you made motion to have a town hall of sorts.
Tomorrow night at 6 p.m.
All right.
Well, this will be
Tuesday.
This is tomorrow, Tuesday at 6 p.m.
So this will be tonight at 6 p.m.
Right, because this will be aired tomorrow on Tuesday. So
right. So at 6 p.m. tonight, let's say that for those listening, there'll be a town hall.
Yes.
What if we don't get the turnout that we want? What does that say about us and how we feel about the issue? I'm not putting you on the spot right now, because a lot of people would want to use a platform like Facebook.
Yeah.
And then not show up when it counts.
Yeah.
Is it? I don't mean to cut you off and even preempt anything that you're about to say. Is it access? Is it that some persons feel a little bit safer speaking in an online forum? And given that you have all of these different things at play, I know that you are encouraging persons to physically come out to the town hall. But if I'm not able to, if I have to work, if I have no one to stay with the children, is it going to be streamed? Is there some other avenue that persons can contribute?
I'm sure that we will provide another avenue for persons to participate. But I am also very cautious with how we engage with topics like this.
Right.
I have come to the realization that, you know, we do have a little bit of a streak in us that wants to just punish and use the hardest penalties available and tools available to us to get the job done. And it's something that's been crossing my mind a lot recently, because when I speak to persons about the situation even in the schools, you know, the comment that really hit home to me is that what they are seeing is almost students coming to school feeling unloved. So the students are acting out in school.
So we would have gone back 3 or 4 issues with the same thing.
Yeah.
And saying the same thing, and I don't want to get heated on the same thing because that's where it starts. And I'm gonna let you finish, Minister, but I just want to remind people that this is not scripted. This is not rehearsed, but here you are reinforcing exactly what we touched on. You know, Gleneva said in one show, how many parents literally just hold your child, hug them and tell them, I love you. You got some parents, some children that don't hear that a lot. Now, we're not going down that emotional road today.
But it does go back to the conversation about mental health in Anguilla. My personal view is everybody needs mental health care in this country.
I think we acknowledge that when we had Dr. Banks' definition.
There's a challenge with there's an inherent challenge of coming from a small island community like Anguilla and having to struggle all the time. Like Anguilla is the fact of the matter is, and it's something that brings me back to the trip in Israel. Going in Israel and seeing what those people have developed with no resources. Now, I mean, this is not me taking particular sides on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but specifically as it relates to what they have achieved with little to nothing. Their symbol, the symbol of the Israeli people, is the prickly pear, the fruit of the prickly pear.
Our island, no? Okay.
The fruit of the prickly pear, and the rationale behind it is to say, even from nothing, with little to no resources, we will still bear fruit. We will be innovative. And it's something that it comes back on me time and time again, because I think that the thing that is crippling Anguilla and will continue to cripple Anguilla when we have persons who are in leadership positions or positions of influence, when they do things with specific motives, it just creates a culture of disunity. And I think Anguilla is as much as I want to see how I can help and foster a culture of community and unity, I cannot do it by myself. And the reality is that a lot of people do look to government to do the bringing together of peoples, and I understand that. I know that they want to look to somebody, but it also is something that we have to do individually as persons. We have to take the mantle upon ourselves. We have to say, I am going to sacrifice time from doing things that I like to doing things to build my community. And that's something that, I mean, again, when I looked at Israel, when I looked at the fact that these people had little to no resources and what they have done, it's all because, based on what happened in the Holocaust, they said the single-minded focus with which they will pursue things is with unity. And I keep, when I look at our communities, and I'm not going to get into what, black people and how we fight each other down, because that's a age-old discussion.
You can.
No, it's an age-old discussion.
It is, but
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to look at what you spend your energy on.
Right.
As a community, they decided they wanted to spend the energy on building each other. They have a whole system called a kibbutz in Israel, where they live together as groups. Purchasing power, they have more purchasing power because they buy everything in bulk.
Don't do that.
They buy what?
You can't be touching those things.
I'm going to touch on it just to make the point.
Yeah, I know you're going to make the point, but then I'm going to go down the road.
No, you're not. You're not going to go down the road.
We're going to keep you
You're just going to listen. But I make the point to say, we yearn as a community for community living, but we pursue individualistic lifestyles. And when this becomes more and more commonplace, which is what I see, because volunteering is non-existent in Angola and everywhere else in the world, volunteering is the backbone. Volunteering is the backbone upon which societies are built, and that's why I'm very defensive of volunteers myself, because I see people critiquing and I'm like, please give up your time and help, because and it goes, maybe ties into education in this way, because I have spoken about it and it's still something I intend to pursue, to make volunteering a part of either the graduation policy or a part of the curriculum, because there is no other way. We can't, to be honest, it is foolhardy to think that I alone will be able to get the community to think I'm going to just volunteer. There are people who volunteer, yes, but to get the vast majority of people to see volunteering as inherent to the way they live, it's foolhardy for me to think that I alone will do it. I want my people to do it.
Right.
But the most, I guess, the easiest way is through our children, because most people who I talk to who are older than me, they'll say the 1967 revolution, something changed in Anguilla. People started, breaking away at each other, children disrespecting adults disrespecting each other. These are some of the conversations I've heard. And so they say that the fabric of the society changed since 1967, 1968. So, I mean, I still hold very strongly to the viewpoint that volunteering can help us to see each other as brothers and sisters and not as, I guess, competition and adversaries.
I agree.
So
Minister.
I'll continue to pursue
Minister, I hope this will be part of the curriculum from September. From all levels. We tried and we've seen the success of something similar at the Alwyn Allison Richardson primary school.
That was not a slip of the tongue.
I say that all the time because our core of parents, we instill that in our children. You understand? And I know our children coming from that institution kind of struggle going into the campus B. Some of them that went straight there because they did not understand like how people would operate. They didn't get it like that.
Yeah.
So there are little things that you can do. I am hoping that you can't graduate in St. Thomas without completing some community service hours.
To be fair,
come on, why is that something as simple as that not done here?
I can speak personally to this matter. I think I may have had this conversation with you, Minister, privately. It's been years, and hopefully we can have the community planner on sometime soon. And this is an initiative that I went to her with. I know she took it further.
She's very excited about it. She wants it to happen.
There was some pushback, and again,
there is pushback.
I agree that in order for us to build that sense of community, that sense of civic pride, because I think that is missing within our community as well. That civic pride, that national pride. Because if you hold national pride, you don't want to see your island being torn apart.
Nope.
And it's rooted in that. And I always say the one thing that I remember, and when the turtle dove became the national bird of Anguilla, what did they do? They ran a campaign in the schools. Zenida Orita, the bird of Anguilla, that song, so that our parents could stop eating the turtle dove. No, but it started somewhere, because then you were telling your parents, no, you can't knock down the turtle dove. I can't drive and hit one because it's a national.
They just behave like they on the road.
They don't play chicken with your vehicle now. But
that's because they don't know that they themselves don't know that they are the national bird. But it started with children telling their parents, no, you can't do this. You can't kill the turtle dove, because again, we recognize that a lot of campaigns, if you really want it instituted, you start with the children.
I will say something here just because it's something that my friend and I were discussing, and I know this is on a ministerial level, and I'll take it back to that, but I want to say it because she said to me, in Anguilla, there is a culture of no accountability.
Behave yourself, Minister. You're gonna get us started.
No, I'm saying this because, and it comes down. It's from the political level down. And again, my trip in Israel was really formative for me because it showed me that when even leaders don't take accountability, it makes it very difficult for you to be flexible, for you to engender trust, for you to inspire, and for you to be innovative. Because there is this thing in Anguilla where you can't admit that you are wrong.
Right.
You can't admit that what you were doing wasn't the best of the best. Because there's a lot of pride structured around ourselves. This failure of failing, this failure of being perceived to have failed. And it really, to me, is destroying us as a people. I have made attempts time and time again, even since I got elected and coming forward. Every time I feel like I needed to take account, I took account. And that was to say to people, whoever you are following me next, whoever is coming next into the ministry or coming next into government, I want you to also be able to take accountability. Because if you are not able to take accountability, then the problem will subsist. And there's a lot of the reason why we are where we are as a country is because nobody takes accountability. Everybody wants to blame somebody. Everybody wants a finger point.
Yeah.
And
that's on all levels.
On all levels, and that's why I'm saying it's not just at the political level, it's all the way down to the bottom.
Everywhere.
And even with our children, which is something I'm going back to, even with our children,
it's always somebody else's fault.
You as a education system, we are attempting to build in our children certain skills, right? We want them to have the 6 C's. We want them to be creative, to be able to communicate, to have critical thinking. We want them to have character. We want them to be able to collaborate. And we want them, I can't remember the last C, C. There's another C, but I believe, what's it? This is a long pause. I'm going to get back to the last C. But in order to do things that create character, you know how you create character? You got to be accountable. If you don't allow your children to take accountability, to be able to deflect, then they're going to grow into adults who don't take accountability.
Man, and we're gonna get into something else, but I just have to say this here. I remember back in the day. Listen, Loretta Ayola Kana is my mother. Everybody know her as Etta. You let me get lashes in school for anything. I get lashes when I come home too.
Correct.
Okay, we ain't beaten. We're not beaten anymore.
We're not talking about beating.
You let anybody have to tell Etta that Ivan passed them and he ain't say good afternoon. You going back up the road to go say good afternoon? My mother, and I just tell people this, they think it's a joke. In Valley Primary School, my mother was a stickler. My mother went in front of the assembly, said, "Excuse me," she stand there, said, "Teacher, I'm sorry, I came for Larry. She did not make her bed this morning." My mother came to the school to carry my sister back home to make her bed. Okay, I say all of that to say, accountability again. It's the behaviors that we train our children to know that they got to see things through. You know, your word is your bond. Listen here, you have to be hospitable to people. You have to know that you only go so far because that's where your dollar will take you or whatever. You can't really, like, a lot of this stuff has gone out of our society.
But I mean, our grandparents are also, for the most part, out of the picture now. That's where we would
true.
have gotten a lot of that, those values from. I mean, no fault to our parents, but you know, grandparents, they grew up in a different age. The kids nowadays, I don't know how many of them have like the older generation grandparents around them who, you know, they're very much about, and while grandparents love you, they still keep you accountable. And I mean, this goes into something in terms of education. which is there's a push internationally in education, which talks about something called the desirable difficulty. And when they talk about desirable difficulty, they say you have to challenge children to want more for themselves. And I say that because if you have a child in a room with a bunch of play blocks and you play blocks, and there's something he has to solve, something the child would have to solve. The first time the child attempts it, might not solve it. Second time, might not solve it. 3 days later, the child, you might start seeing a picture coming together. But we're living in a world where it's instant gratification.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to almost counteract that feeling of needing all the time to have instant gratification. You need to be able to enjoy the process of learning and understanding something. And for myself, it's not necessarily the way we are taught in this education system, because it's very content heavy. It pushes. It's like content. You need to finish this.
Yeah.
These are the subjects coming up on the CXC examination, which is why I am and continue to be a very big advocate. I mean, CXC hates when I come into those meetings, because I keep saying to them, and I say to the ministers across the region, because the ministers across the regions are the ones who set CXC's tone, set what CXC is expected to deliver as its mandate. And I say to them, at the end of the day, if we are just churning out people who know content rather than churning out global citizens, then we are already failing at our jobs. Because our job is to teach children to love to learn. And you're not even giving teachers the ability to teach children to love to learn if you're just telling teachers, just finish the content, just finish the syllabus. It's against a lot of what modern teaching methodology is actually asking of us. I have to go to the OECS Ministers of Education meeting on the 6th of July. And I mean, I told Dr. Didicus Jules, you're gonna have to be wary of me, because I'm coming at everybody.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, these are our children. Everybody talks about the future, and I'm like, education in Angola, although it's not different to education anywhere else in the region, we have to be able to break the mold. The IB system, the systems we see in New Zealand, in Singapore, in Finland,
You're shaking your head, Gwen.
the systems we see there are as a result of people understanding that something is not working with our traditional systems. And it's not to say that something is not working with the people. The system is organized in a way that doesn't give people the ability to even be creative.
Do you think that children today learn differently?
I think not necessarily that they learn differently. I just think that the means of engaging them is different. I think the means of engaging them is different, because children are more disengaged, and it's due to a various number of factors, to be honest. But I think that they're more disengaged today than they were years ago. But this is a slow burn. The education has been on this Ferris wheel for the last 20 years.
I like that term, slow burn.
But I agree with you, because I do have some limited experience with the IB system, and it is different. And when I say that, a lot of people come at my neck, because they go, nothing is wrong with our public system.
They think so?
And
Basura.
there is so much that I can say.
No, say.
And this.
We got
and
time. Say.
Okay, Ivan. I think it was 2018. 2018 that I led a forum on education, looking at our education system, where we are now, where we want to go, and COVID interrupted a little bit of that and wanting to do a follow-up. But now that I have the minister here, I'm going to see, because it showed up on my Facebook timeline recently, and I'm going, okay, I need to engage the minister, and hopefully this time we can have persons from the education department, from the Ministry of Education, who are willing to engage with private citizens wanting...
Yes.
Because I think Mr. Romney, when he was here and he spoke about different stakeholders, and that education isn't
Very
just
complex.
the ministry, it isn't just the department, it isn't just the teachers. It takes, it's a trifecta. I think it's the student, the teacher, the ministry.
It's the students, the teacher, the parents, the ministry, the community.
Yeah, so it's more than a trifecta. It's a round big globe. And so what my intention was to really have all persons coming together and being able to dissect where we want to go. For various reasons. I know there was some pushback. And so I think now is the time, or the time is the time is
It's part of our plan to have annual education forums. So we obviously there've been a number of challenges in the last 2 years, which
Yes.
would have prevented us
What
from
challenges?
What challenges? Challenges. But it is something that we are looking forward to having and hosting. In addition to the task forces, which are due to take off very soon. We've had some delays as a result of some emergency issues, but I'm very excited about the task forces.
Remind us of those task forces. I know Mr. Romney, he would have given
Yeah.
us a breakdown. Remind us, if you can, of
So
what
we have
those-
our curriculum review task force. We have our teacher recruitment task force. We have our methodologies and assessment task force. And then we have leadership and administration task force. And those task forces are meant to debrief, things about, let's just say, curriculum. We're looking at a holistic, a realistic, and a local curriculum, one that looks at our context because, and a global context, both local and global, but we want to feel the global context within our curriculum. And when we look at teacher recruitment, we're looking at how do we interact with the public administration, how do we find a better model for which we can really have impact within the teaching service, both for teacher training and teacher recruitment. We look at methodologies and assessments. We look at what are the pedagogical tools that we use to engage students, what are the best practices, what is the purpose of assessments. And maybe I want to stick a pin here to talk about assessments because I understand the need for assessments. I also say to a number of persons who talk about assessments is that assessments are a tool. They're a tool to then use to inform your strategy going forward towards individual children.
Stop right there for a minute. Because I've often wondered, we go through all this testing and assessment for these children, but I felt that is just an assessment of, have you covered the content?
Tick in a box.
I know a lot of children who study and can pass. Application is a different story. Interpretation of concepts and context, non-existent.
But even more so, I'll dig a little bit deeper, and I think this is where the minister was going. So you assess, and then what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
You do the assessment, and okay, so you have a child that doesn't do so well on the assessment, but what do you do with that?
Yes.
You
Yes.
continue to just let them continue going through the school system?
Yeah.
What
Which is
happens?
the challenge. So, I mean, to bring this to a full, I mean, there's a teacher, Mr. Ruan. He always, even from the first time we started talking about it, he was like, there needs to be something after a third grade and third form to break the pattern of just simply coasting through the system. And it's something that we are looking at closer to see how we can implement, because I'll take it from two perspectives here. If the assessment isn't used to change the strategy, and this partially has happened because of the focus on just pushing the syllabus and pushing content
passing yes,
over
yes,
years, you're not actually you don't actually have the time to sit down and be like, okay, how do I then change my strategy towards this child? Because it is obvious that the strategies I've been using thus far may not have been as successful or aren't reaching, or there may be some other underlying concern like the child's well-being, because those are a lot of the concerns that come through the school. And then from the second perspective, you're looking at not only our English-speaking students, but our Spanish-speaking students. And when they come into the school system, a lot of them aren't quite able to assimilate and integrate as seamlessly because their command of the language is not at the level yet of where they're entering the school system. So there are two ways of looking at, how do we create that environment for both for our students and our teachers to actually use that information in a way that helps, and then how do we look at how do we provide a proper entryway for our Spanish-speaking students so that they get into the system and they're not, they're not isolated. You don't have that many Spanish-speaking teachers in the school, so that's an inherent constraint. And so from that perspective, we are creating the ESL, English as a Second Language, center costing, and because we're looking to see how we can implement it. And also in the task force that's looking at assessment, what I referred to just now is also going to be focused on.
I would often wonder how these children even feel with testing when everything, just the other day, they've been asking to make the written tests in Spanish. We have a large and growing Spanish community, and they're not Spaniards as we saw, was the term I would want to use.
They're from the Dominican Republic.
They're from the Dominican Republic, and a lot of them are cousins.
Dominicana.
And some aren't from the Dominican
Some are from
Republic.
here. Some are from here.
But they're Spanish speaking.
But they're Spanish speaking.
The reason I say that is because we have a number,
Cubans.
I think, of Cubans, Venezuelans, and so to pigeonhole them all as one, I think
it's. I mean, that's like the general public.
Yes.
And
I do have a question, because when we speak of English as a second language, and I know our focus is because
it's not
we
just
do
on Spanish speaking
okay,
students.
because we do have the major population may be our Spanish speaking students, but how do we deal with students who are coming in speaking Mandarin and other Chinese languages?
Yes, I mean, I agree. That's another thing that we have to look at. I always say to even Brent brought that up to me when he was talking about the ESL Center the other day. And in the back of my mind, while I was talking to him, I was saying, one of the things we have to look at is that we also have some inherent constraints in terms of meeting the needs of everybody.
Right.
And those are just resource reality needs.
Right.
So to be able to bring in a Mandarin speaking teacher, Mandarin to English speaking teacher, you're gonna always have to justify it in comparison to something else.
Right.
I do think that there are other methodologies. Technology is advanced significantly, and we can look at technology to see how we can bridge that divide. So, again, if there's a will, there's a way.
All right. So, let me dovetail a little bit into just some changes that we would have seen. There's a lot happening. I heard you say it on a radio broadcast recently. You said it in conversation. Social development and education is one of those ministries that you don't see much tangible things right away, but there's a lot that has gone in that will change the fabric of our society and our outlook going forward for generations and decades to come. And important, and I can't downplay it, not because I wear dreads, not because I subscribe to Rastafari, none of that stuff, but simply because I never quite understood what a child's hair has to do with them learning or their ability to learn. But we placed all this emphasis. I understand looking neat. I understand you wearing the uniform, which is not yours. This is a school. I understand representation. But how are we okay with boxing in someone to say you have to provide reference of religious reason to wear your hair a certain way for all these years.
Yeah. I mean, as I said in our press conference, because I was just, how do you think it looks to students for me as the Minister of Education to have dreadlocks? And if you want to wear dreadlocks, you have to lie and say, I am religiously a Rastafarian. It's not true.
Yeah.
But my whole perspective on this matter is we are a predominantly black nation. This is separate and apart from issues as it relates to dyeing your hair or kids, because kids want to experiment in their hair. But I say, like, okay, if kids want to experiment to that extent, let them do it during summer.
Yeah.
But coming from the perspective of a predominantly black nation that knows the difficulty of dealing with black hair, and this is why I keep saying there seems to be a disconnect to me when we're talking about these issues, because you as a black person went through sitting between your auntie or your mother's lap legs and getting your hair yanked out from root to tip, or getting a hot comb pulled through your hair, and knowing the pain, right? Knowing the pain that caused, and knowing that there was within that system, although our parents and our grandparents may have loved themselves eternally, there was historically an element of anti-blackness in the movement for straightening your hair, for hot combing and ironing your hair. It was the black hair is too difficult to deal with, and it's not European enough. So from that perspective, which anchors my belief as it relates to the hair policy, when you and it's separate apart from issues of grooming, which is tidiness, cleanliness. Tidiness and cleanliness. What substantively is it that you are trying to achieve? Because there's always a rationale for a rule, right? And I really try to embody like the halo policy in the UK, because if you want to have an enabling environment, then these are some of the things you have to consider. I must put a caveat here, because I went into the school and I spoke to a number of students, and this is something I spoke to a number of students and I spoke to a number of teachers, and a number of the teachers said, kids are using their hair to cover their ears, and keep their ear pods in their ears, right? And from my perspective, it's okay. There is a behavior that's happening here, right? That needs to be addressed. But that is separate and apart from the issue of hair.
Because if I have natural hair and I have my hair in plaits as a female,
so it's separate and apart from those two issues. There may be some issues, but we can't. We need to pause on conflating the two issues. So again, I felt very strongly I should not have to encourage children to lie to justify wearing their hair in a specific manner. I know the argument. You give children an inch, they take a mile. I know the argument. I've heard it. I see it.
Give Anguillians an inch, them take.
You've been through this argument. I mean, it's interesting. I had some conversations with some kids on the park, and they're like, "Why, teacher? Them call me teacher now, so I know I reach up there."
Did they do that too?
Aged.
Oh my
They say,
God.
"But teacher, why I can't dye my hair?" I said, "Darling, dye your hair during summer. Dye your hair during summer, because at the end of the day, we also have to be able to ensure that our children understand, because a lot of them are asking why one rule for us and not the same for teachers, and that is an argument I hear, but undressing that argument requires a level of understanding, because you're a teacher. A teacher is an adult. You are a child. And I'm not reinforcing authority tropes, but I'm saying you don't just... I'm a 29-year-old woman who drives, pays bills, etc., etc., etc. You have your own autonomy. You are able to express yourself as a child, but in a manner as a child. When you are an adult, when you're 18, you're able to do whatever you like. When you're living in your mother's house, you don't tell your mother, oh, how come you get to go to Better Band, or how come you get to go to the Carnival Band Clash 2022 and I don't get to go? You don't. There's. I hear the kids, but obviously there's something they're gonna push the envelope because they can. I don't agree with all of those arguments.
Yeah.
I don't. And I know a lot of people think that I just go with everything the young people saying. Yeah. There is a element of balance to be had in those conversations.
I'm gonna bring a young person's argument into this conversation because I have had this discussion, and I for the past 2 years my daughter attends private school. Mm-hmm. She has not worn a skirt to school. She's going to transition into ALHCS come September. And her biggest gripe is can I not wear a pants? She's like, what does the skirt provide for me and that a pants doesn't? She said, if as far as I'm concerned, if you're thinking modesty, then the pants is the better thing for me. If you're thinking exposing myself, then a pants is better than a skirt. And I said, but that's the uniform. And so I've said to her, I need you to write a letter outlining your argument for why you feel you should be allowed to wear a pants so that you can submit it to the minister. So, Minister, I'm telling you from now.
So wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Put me on my P's and Q's. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's
this trial belongs to you, right?
What are you trying to do?
And you gonna challenge that child to write a letter to create an argument. I hope you're ready, because she's gonna CC you. That's what's gonna happen. She's gonna CC you.
No, I mean, these are conversations that are going to happen more and more in our societies, and you know, you will get pushback. There is no two ways about it. It is always, for me, what is the rationale behind the rule? How do you justify the rationale? And is this kid appropriate behavior? That's how, those are the things that I consider when making decisions in relation to these policies. And other people may want to consider other factors. Fair enough. These are the ones that I consider. I think that they're an appropriate set of considerations. I do engage, try as much as possible to engage the entire ministry and department in these decisions, but you do understand that it's 340 something personnel, so getting consultation in my ministry alone is a very tedious and long process, which is why the education management information system is going to be so important when it's rolled out, because we need to have easier ways of communicating to parents about the activities of their children, among each other, about things that are being asked, and to feed up to external and international educational bodies, so we can see we have a data-driven policy based on this, that, and the other.
Excellent.
So, I'm looking at the time.
Go ahead.
And I'm thinking, Ivan, with your leave and permission, you minister, there's a topic that we want to get to, but I'd like to shelve it.
Okay.
Simply because I think once we start to get into that topic,
We're not gonna get anywhere else.
We cannot do that topic justice in the amount of
6
time.
minutes, yeah.
And so this is now an open invitation that we would like to have you back to speak specifically to where we are at with the decriminalization of marijuana.
Yes.
I got an update for you.
So can you give us a brief update and then we come back? No, we're gonna wait until.
You're gonna have to wait.
Okay.
No exclusive again.
But the reason I wanted to shelve it and use these last few minutes was because the minister touched on something a little while ago, and social development, education, but under social development is culture. We are heading into Carnival, our summer festival. What can you tell us? We've not had a summer festival for a couple years.
Yes. I know that everybody is looking forward to the schedule committee. it is, and it has been the way that the Carnival Scheduling Committee and the Carnival in general has been organized for a number of years. This is obviously the first time in a while, but the Carnival Committee, once composed, has the authority to make decisions in respect of Carnival. So a lot of people think that Deanne is behind the scenes pulling Carnival. It is not Deanne behind the scenes pulling Carnival. It is your Carnival committee members who are responsible for Carnival.
So we do have Carnival 2022 on board. It's happening.
Yes. I know that you might not think it's happening because you haven't seen anything yet, but
So we just need to put it out there for the people. It's happening.
It's happening, yes.
And when we say Carnival 2022 Summer Festival, 2022 is happening. We're not just speaking the private shows, because we do know that there are a number of private shows. Ivan, we're going to speak about one of those after. We're not speaking just about the private shows. We can look forward to a Prince and Princess, a Queen show, a Talented Teen, a Calypso show, the cultural shows, the band clashes.
Yes, which is what we want. I mean, we want people to come out and support the cultural components of our shows as well. I know that a lot of people would. I mean, the young people want to go to the shows, the private shows, right? But I think it's also important for us to look at, Calypso. Calypso has been a mainstay in our carnival schedule for such a long time. It's such an important part of our culture. It's such an important thing that makes us unique to the world, as a music type, as a genre, as a means of social commentary.
The Biba Island Calypso show was always a hit.
It always was a hit. I mean, there are a couple of years that we've seen some movement in terms of people coming into the village for the show, but the hope is that it can continue to grow. So you have a Talented Teen and pageantry. So as a former Miss Anguilla contestant, Miss Anguilla winner, it's
so modest.
I am so modest.
Contestant.
I am.
You take the crown, man.
From my mind and from my perspective, pageantry has been really important in my personal development. And I keep telling young women, if you want to join a pageant and your goal is just winning, you're going to miss out on all of the lessons you need to learn. If you're joining a pageant to develop your confidence, to develop your ability to stand in front of people and get aggressive, then you should give it your best shot.
Perfect.
Okay.
Minister, we have so much more to go, but we are mindful of the time, so we want to say thank you for being here with us on Progress Report. I think we got quite a bit to chew on. It was an excellent appetizer. I know we have not delved into at least 4 to 6 of the points we wanted to touch today.
I know, we're just chatting.
Yeah, but that's what it is updates and conversations from the Government Information Service. I am happy for your experiences and that we can, as a community, hear from you and live through those and see how we can better ourselves. So that being said, I just want to say thank you for being here with us on Progress Report. Anybody have anything else to say?
Yeah, I guess we allow the minister a moment to kind of wrap up anything that you feel that's pressing that you'd like to say, and definitely extending that invitation to persons.
Yeah. I definitely want to extend the invitation to persons tonight at 6 p.m. to meet me at the Campus B Auditorium to discuss the issues with violence in our community, specifically as it relates to the school. I know that for a lot of us, dealing with issues of violence would not be common because they're not necessarily something that happens in everybody's household, but it is a community-wide issue. It's talking about how we live safely within this island that we call paradise.
Yes.
I really do also encourage persons to really get involved in more community-based events, community-based activities, to volunteer your time, because when you think about what the meaning of life is how you give to others. It's public service. And I really would love to see Anguilla as a more voluntary-based community, voluntary-based island. I want to see the same spirit that we had after Hurricane Irma. I feel like a very obvious missing feeling of that community spirit and camaraderie, and I think it's a sad testament that we only feel that after catastrophe. So I really do want to bring our community together because I think it's important for us to survive as a nation.
All right. That being said, I totally endorse that. I'm looking forward to our next conversation. This was a little bit more relaxed today. We almost got it revved up a bit. Thank you for pulling me back, Leneva, because you know where I stand on some issues. But
Yep.
this has been great. I think our listening audience will appreciate this, and we look forward to hearing from you again. How soon will you be back? Once we call?
Once you call me.
Say less. Don't say nothing else.
All right.